Hello and welcome to Plant Crafted Pantry. Today we are making pear caramel. This recipe comes from the book Preserving by the Pint, which I will link below, and I am tripling the recipe today. I'm starting by peeling and chopping 6 pears, which came to 3 pounds, and adding those to my blender. Then I'm adding 1.5 teaspoons of salt and 6 tablespoons of water. And then we'll blend those up until it's a smooth puree and then set that aside. Next, I'm adding 4.5 cups of sugar to a pot on the stove and adding 2.25 cups of water. We'll cook this on medium-high heat without stirring it, and I'm adding my candy thermometer to the side of the pot. We're looking for a temperature of 350 degrees Fahrenheit if you live at sea level. But if you live at high altitude like I do, subtract 2 degrees for every 1,000 feet. So I'm looking for about 340 degrees. Then I removed the pot from the heat and slowly and carefully poured and stirred in the pear puree. I ended up with a chunk of caramel that wouldn't stir in off the heat, so I moved on, put the pot back on the heat, and continued stirring and heating it to 208 degrees Fahrenheit, or 218 if you're at sea level. The chunk of caramel did melt back into the sauce as I did this, so it got nice and smooth. Then I took it off the heat and we're ready to put this in jars to can it. So I have 6 clean, hot 1 cup jars here, plus a couple of 4-ounce jars in case I ended up with extra sauce. And I'm ladling in the sauce to a 1/2 inch of headspace. Then I debubbled and adjusted the headspace as needed. And then I wiped the rims of the jars with white vinegar to get off any sticky residue. And then we'll add some new canning lids and put on the rings to fingertip tight. And then we'll get these loaded up in my Nesco Smart Pressure Cooker and Canner. I filled 6 of the 1 cup jars to can. And then I'm adding a 4-ounce jar that's just filled with water as a spacer in the middle. We'll get the lid closed and make sure the dial is set to exhaust. And then we'll push the WB steam button and set our canning time. The canning time for this recipe is 10 minutes, and I need to add 10 more minutes for my altitude. So I'm setting 20 minutes and then start. The chasing lines will show up as it heats up, and then once the steam starts coming out in a steady stream, you push start again and it'll start the timer for you. Here I'm adding what's left in the pot to a 4-ounce jar. This did end up being enough to fill the jar, but I just put this in the fridge instead of canning it. So here's the end of the canning time. I let the canner sit to cool down for about a 1/2 hour, making sure the steam has stopped releasing. And then I'll wait a few more minutes with the lid open before taking the jars out and setting them on a dish mat to cool overnight. So here is how the jars look straight out of the canner. I did have 1 jar fail to seal, so I put it in the fridge once it was cool. And then this is the next morning, and I'm removing the rings and testing the seals of the 5 remaining jars. I washed them to remove any sticky residue, and then I'll label them with a Sharpie and get them put up on the pantry shelf. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks so much for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time. Bye.